So we've started off by looking at the preparing you for financial freedom using the Smart Savings solution. Then we've looked at the Safe Retirement Roadmap to create a plan for the future, give you clarity on where you want to get to and how you're going to get there. But what we now need to do is get your money working harder for you than inflation. Get your money to generate you a profit each year. And the way that we help our clients with that is what we call the radical investment approach. Again, this is a 7-step process as to how we can get your money generating you a profit. Now, what do I mean by profit? I've just touched on the fact that it's growth over and above inflation. But this is such an important concept, I want to just take a minute or two to explain what I mean by that and why it's so important. Because inflation is eroding your money. If you put your money in the bank, it is eroding the buying power of that money. It may not seem that way, but if you can buy £100 worth of goods with something this year, next year you won't be able to buy those same goods. You'll only be able to buy, say, 99%, £99 worth of goods with that same money that sat in the bank. The following year, maybe only £97 worth of goods. And that effect on your money is eating into the value each and every year. And in fact, if you look at this chart, you can see the real value of money, which is the blue flat line at the top. And then if you chase the best savings accounts over that period, the red line is how much your money fell by putting it in the bank account. Now that's when you've chased the best savings account possible. If you've just left it in one savings account, or even worse, left it in your current account, it's going down even quicker than that. And I don't know if you noticed that when you buy a packet of sweets, when I was at school, I could buy a chomp bar for 10p. Now, I don't eat chomp bars anymore, but if I did, I'm willing to guarantee it'd be significantly more than 10p. And not only that, it'd probably be smaller than what I was eating as a child with my 10p. Here's an example of the BBC picking out the fact that Maltese and Kit Kats have shrunk over the time, and more recently we had some news that Jaffa cakes have shrunk. So you get one less Jaffa cake per pack than you used to. And actually this for me is a better indication of inflation with your money. Because yes, I know the Jaffa cakes are getting more expensive, and you can notice the fact they're getting a little bit more expensive. What you don't notice is the fact that you're getting one less Jaffa cake. The product is eroding over time. And that is what's happening to your money if you leave it in the bank account. So you have to take some action. And it leads me on to an important point. There is no such thing as no risk. Sometimes people will say to me, I'm going to put the money in the bank because I want no risk. The problem is that they then have a different risk, which is inflation risk. If inflation goes up, then their money goes down faster. So there is no such thing as no risk. The question is, how much risk do you want and what type of risk? There is always risk with your money. Okay, so let's then have a look at, if there is risk, how do we know how much risk is right? So if we've established that there's no such thing as no risk, what's the right level of risk for you? And the way that we do that is we need to understand a bit about the risk and reward metrics that are going on in your head. Because there's lots of tools out there called risk profiling tools, but in my experience, they're not very good because they categorize people too narrowly, and you end up with everybody on the same level of risk. And everybody's not in the same situation. So that's crazy. So we believe that behavioural finance is the only way you can really get an understanding of what's the right level of risk for somebody. By using behavioural finance, you can start to understand what somebody's aversion to loss is. How scared are they of their money going down? Also, how attracted they are to gains. How motivated are they to get their money growing? How scared they get when markets go up and down quickly. And finally, whether they're likely to make irrational decisions when the markets do fall. And only once you understand these principles about yourself can you start to understand the right level of risk for you. It may be that you're tolerant to a high level of risk, but you're also likely to make a stupid decision if it falls a lot. And what that means is you'll rip up the plan at the wrong time because you've got scared. So understanding your own behavioural finance is really important, which is why we use behavioural finance assessments for our clients. It's also really important that you invest at the right level of risk for you, because as I said quite a while ago, quite often you find that clients will take too much risk with their investments. So if I go back to the example I used earlier on of the entrepreneur that was getting 10% growth, but actually he could have had 25% growth, what I didn't tell you was that his investments were actually higher risk than we'd found that he was supposedly comfortable with. So he was taking more risk than he really wanted to. He just didn't realise it, which is a very common problem. So what we found is, had he taken the same level of risk as he was currently taking and done it properly, he could have actually got more like an additional 35% growth. But if we brought him down to the right level of risk for him, so we took some risk away, reduced the amount of risk, he could still have that extra 25% growth over the 3 years. So it's really important to understand how much risk you've been taking compared to what you're comfortable with. But in addition to looking backwards, it's also really important to look forwards, because of course past performance is no guide to the future, as I'm sure you've heard many, many times. So what you can also do is start to model the risk versus reward you're likely to get from your current investments compared to a properly managed portfolio. And so what you'll see from this line is, or this chart, you'll see what's called the efficient frontier, which is the line that moves from bottom left to top right. That's where we want to be, because that's the most efficient way to invest. The blue dot, or sorry, I think it's a green dot actually, on the far right is his current investments. So that means they're far higher risk than he really wants, which is the orange square, but they're also under the efficient frontier line, which means he's taking more risk than necessary to get the returns he's likely to get. So by looking forwards and looking backwards, you can get a much better understanding of what risk you're currently taking, but what risk is right for you. So it's really important that you assess the amount of risk that is appropriate to you, and you build an investment strategy based on that.